So once we have done with the design, now let's try to code it. So in this, what we have done is we have taken an image view, we have taken edit text, then we have taken two radio buttons, and we have email and password field. Now what we want here, once you click on this button which is create account, it should show you some text what we have entered here. So let's say if I enter Naveen and if I select mail, if I enter my email ID and password, once I click on create, it should show the details. That's what we're expecting from this code. Now before going for this, we'll first check if this button is working or not. Now how to do that? First we have to run this code to check if it's working or not. So once I click on this button, it will run the application. I have already opened my emulator here, so if I open it, so it will take some time to load again. So what we're expecting, so once you click on this button, it should something should happen, right? And let's try it out. So it's waiting, and okay, we got, oh, what's that? Now the problem is I have created multiple activities in my project, right? So you can see we have 3 activities here. So that's, oh, where's my layouts? Okay, so if you see I have different activities here. So we need to run this form, right, which is sign up activity. For that we have to go to Android manifest. So we can see we have created lots of activities here. What we will do, we'll just take this intent filter which is responsible to launch the activity, and we'll cut this part and we'll paste it here. What is this? This is intent filter, and you have to mention the name of your activity. Also, this is responsible to launch your activity, and this is your activity which is sign up activity. So it will launch the activity you are working with. So let's go back to the sign up, and now let's run this again. Let me just pause the video so that it will not waste time. Now you can see we got the output as name, and then it is providing me this detail. Once I click on this button, you can see nothing is going on, right? Nothing is happening. So in order to provide the action to a button, we need to add a listener. By default, your button is dumb or deaf. So we need to add a listener there. Now how to add the listener? For that, you have to go to your Java code. That's here. Let's go to sign up activity. And to assign a listener to your button, first we have to create an object for a button or reference for a button. So we'll say this is button. We'll say b equal to, not equal to, here we have to assign the object inside this on create. So we have to say this is b equal to, then we have to say find view by id. We have already mentioned a name for that button, and the name is, it is btn sign up. Can you see that? So we can see r.id, and we can say this is btn sign up. Now the problem is this find view by id will give you the view. We want to be specific. I want a view with the type is button. So this is button view type. Okay. Okay. So once we have got the button, so to add the listener to your button, you have to say b.set Onclicklistener, which will take an object of Onclicklistener. We have seen this in the last video, which is we have done for addition, right? So we'll create object of Onclicklistener here. And how to do that? Okay, so we'll say this is new view dot on, not view. Let's say control space. It is Onclicklistener. How's that? Okay, so we have to say this is Onclicklistener. So we got view dot Onclicklistener, and inside this there's a method called as onClick, which, so every time you click on a button, this method will be called. Now if you don't know what is this, you can just go back to my channel and watch a video about inner class. Okay, so you can just search for that video there. I've talked about how to use anonymous inner class. Okay, now in this what we'll do is we'll try to print something. Now what I want to print, I want to show a detail on the screen, like a pop-up thing. So to do that, we have to use something called as toast, and we'll say toast.makeToast, which takes 3 parameters. The first parameter is on which screen, we'll say on the same screen, and to mention that we have to say sign up activity.this. The second, we have to mention is the text what we want to show. We'll say this is clicked, and the third we have to mention, let's say, the duration. So we'll say this is toast dot long duration, so it will be there for a longer time, right? And let's run this code now, and let's open the activity. It will take some time to load. Output here, if I click on this button which is create account, oh, nothing has happened, right? So you can see nothing is going on. So the thing is, once you say make text, we have to also mention that we need to show this. So we have to say dot show. That's important, right? So if you run this code now, once again, if I click on this button, you can see it is showing clicked, and you can see the duration. It is for a longer time, right? You can also mention, instead of saying length underscore long, we can also say length underscore short. It will be for a shorter duration. So that's how you click on a button. But we don't just want that button, we also want to show the text, right? So for that, we need to fetch all the text which is present in your on your form or your page activity. So how to fetch that? We have name, we have gender, we have email ID and password. So for that, we need to create all these buttons or the objects. So the first is text view, or not text view, that's your edit text, right? So we have to say edit text. We'll name this as name, or we'll say this is et name. Okay. The next thing we require is, again we require two more edit text. And we'll say this is for email. This is et email. And next is for password. We'll say edit text et pass. Okay. Now next we require for radio button. So we'll say this is radio button. We'll say R1. Same thing for R2. We'll say just reuse the code. And we also require button RadioGroup. So we'll say this is radio group, and we'll say this is RG. Okay, so we got all these objects. This is R2. Now once we got all these objects, we have to link these objects with the XML file, and to do that we have to mention this is et email with find view by ID. We have to say r.id, and that will be input email. And then you have to mention here as edit text. Okay, now next let's reuse the code again. So next is for password. We'll say this is et pass. Okay, and we have to say this is input password. Next is for name, so we'll say et name. Sequence doesn't matter, so we can say edit text. Oh, I should be reusing the code, right? So that paste, and this, instead of this password, you have to say this is name. Now once we got all the reference, or we are still remaining with button group and so the radio group and radio button. And so for radio button, we'll say R1 equal to radio button, and we'll say this is find view by ID, and here we can mention ID dot, what's the name of radio button? I forgot. That was F, right? So R1 is F, and R2 is M, male and female. So that's R2 here. Sorry, and that's M. Now we need to provide for radio group also. We'll say RG equal to, again let me just type for this. We'll say this is radio group. Find view by ID. We'll say R dot ID dot, what was the radio group name? It's radio group itself. Now once we got all the reference here, sorry, now we'll try to print all these details with I'm sorry. Yeah, so we need to print all these details on this onClick event. We have assigned all the reference. Now let's try to print the values. To do that, we have to fetch the values first. So we'll take a string which will have name. So we'll say string name, and this data will be coming from et name, right? And how to fetch? So whenever you want to fetch the data, so if you are familiar with Swing or VB, so you know there's something as getText, right? So we got getText, but we have to also convert that text into a string format, because this getText will give you a format of edit text. We want a string, right? So we have to say toString. Then we have string, then string what? Email. We'll say email equal to the same thing. We can say et email, and we'll say get text dot to string. And the same thing for password, we'll say this is string password. So actually this is not the right way of fetching password, right? We are hacking a software here. So we'll say get text and to string. So we got the password also. Now, so once we got name, email, and password, let's work with this and let's see RadioButton later. So I want to print all this data on the not toast. We'll print everything inside a console. So I want to print on the console here. Now, how to do that? What I will do here is I will simply say sout, which will print, or system.println, which will print on the console. I will print the name first. I will say this is name. Okay, and we'll say plus. It should print name. Then next thing we'll print is email on the next line. So we'll say /n. We'll say this is email plus, and that's email. Sorry. The next thing we have is what? Password. So we'll say this is password, and that's my pass. Okay, and everything is good. Yeah. So now there's one thing. Whenever you want to access a variable inside anonymous inner class, so those variables should be final, right? Because it doesn't allow you mutation, so we have to make it final. Okay, now let's run this code. Let's see what will happen here. So if I run this code, got the screen. Let's enter values. So we'll say this is Naveen. Oh, that's weird, right? I cannot type on keyboard now. I have to use this. So that's Naveen. Doesn't matter what gender we select. Anyway, even if I select male, it doesn't matter, right? Because we are not fetching that value. Let's say this is nn@gg, and the password, let's say this is hhyy. So that's the password we have entered, right? And as soon as I click on create account, it says clicked, and you can see we got the details here. So we got name, which is blank, we got email, which is blank, and we got password, which is blank. Okay, the problem is we should fetch this detail inside the Onclicker, right? Because we are entering the data after loading your screen, right? So we have to write this inside Onclick. So we'll again run this. So the problem was we were trying to fetch this detail outside the Onclick, right? And we are entering data after the screen is open. So this method will execute when your screen gets created. So we are entering data after that. So we need to fetch that detail after the Onclick method, right? So let's enter some data now. Once again, there's those weird data. So we'll say this is nn. I'm damn lazy now. So this is nn@gg, and the password is again hhyy. And if I click on this button, you can see we got the data. We got name, we got email, and we got password, right? So that's how you fetch data from a edit text. But now we want to also use the radio buttons, right? Now how to fetch data from radio buttons? It's not that easy as it seems. So let's fetch the radio button data. So let me create a string, and we'll say this is gender. The initial value for this will be blank, and we'll check here. So if, now how to verify which radio button is checked? So the first radio button name is R1. Now this R1 has a method called as isChecked. Now what is isChecked? If your radio button is selected, it will give you, or if your radio button is checked, it will give you true, right? In that scenario, we'll say gender equal to male. Oh, R1 is female, right? So that's female. And we'll give a semicolon. Else, we'll say this is gender equal to male, right? And now we'll also print the gender. So we'll say this is plus /n, and we'll say this is gender plus. Instead of that, well, let's make it more fancy. Instead of printing the gender, we'll will not say gender, we'll say salute. Okay, and we'll say this is salute. If the first is selected, which is female, we'll say this is miss, and this is salute. This is Mr. Right? And here we'll print, before name we'll print, not here, but here we'll print salute and some space plus. Even we don't require space, we require space with dot, right? Now if I run this code, let's see what happens. And if I say run, data once again, this time let's go for BB, let's select female, and we'll say email ID as bb@cc, and we'll say password ggYY. So once we entered that, let's click on create account, and we got Miss BB. It's because we have selected female, right? So that's how your radio button work. Even we can also print this detail inside a toast. So let me take this whole detail and let's copy this, and instead of printing clicked, let's print this data, and let's see what happens. If I run this again, data values will say this is pp mail rr. Oh, that's okay. So we'll say this is dd@pp, and that's sound like dp, right? We'll say this is password, and that's click on this, and you got the details as a toast, right? So because we got it for the shorter duration because we have mentioned it as short, right? That's short here. So that's how you fetch data from radio button. That's how you do it, right? But that's not the best way to do it. There's another way using which you can do this, and let's see what that way now. Now how to do that? So the problem is, on this screen we have only 2 radio buttons, right? So let's say we have 20 radio buttons. What you will do? You will write if else for 20 times. That's not the best way, right? So we'll comment this part since this is not the best way. Now what is the best way here? So the best way will be create there is a method with RadioGroup itself. So we'll say this is rg dot. So there's a method called as get checked radio button ID. Now this will return you a ID, which will, let's say this is int I. That's an ID you will be getting. Now I don't want the ID, right? We want the radio button itself. So we'll create a radio button here, and we'll say this is rb equal to this is rg dot find view by ID, in which you have to mention the index, which is I here, and depend upon the index it will give you the radio button. So if you select the first one, it will give you the first radio button. If you select second one, it will give you second radio button, right? And we have to also convert this into a radio button. Now this will give you the radio button which you have selected. Okay, but okay, now how to verify? So what we'll do is we'll say we'll print the text, not the salute here. So let me remove this salute, and let's print the gender itself just to make it more effective. So not here, let me just comment this part. Inside toast only, I will print it after the password. So here I will say again plus. We'll say this is gender. We'll say plus, and this is radio button, which is rb dot get text. It will give the text which we have mentioned there, and toString. So if you select male, it will give you male. If you select female, it will give you female, right? And doesn't matter even if you have 20 radio buttons, doesn't matter, it will give you the button you have selected. You don't have to apply if else every time. Let me run this code now. Okay. Enter details here. Let's say this is ff female, and this say ff@dd, and that's my password AAAE. And if I click on this create account, you can see we got the gender as female. If I select male and if I click on create, it says male, right? So that's how we can work with radio buttons. We have 2 ways. Either we can use if else and we can say is checked, or we can use this way. So that's the best way of doing this. So yeah, that's it from this video. So I hope you have liked this video. So if you like this video, just press a like button there and do subscribe for further videos. And there's one more thing. If you have any suggestions for the tutorials for Android specifically, and if you want some more videos, or if you want to be specific codes, let me know so that I will create that video separately from this series. Okay, so that's it. Thanks for watching.